Let's talk about Confucius. And I want you to forget the image of some distant, bearded sage. We're going to look at Confucius as a master observer of people, a really practical teacher whose insights on human character feel just as sharp today as they did 2,500 years ago. You see, he spent his whole life trying to answer a question that we still wrestle with every single day. I mean, really think about it. It's the question at the heart of everything, isn't it? Whether you're choosing a friend, a business partner, or a leader. Who's the real deal? Who actually has integrity? And who's just, putting on a good show? And this is what's so cool about Confucius. This wasn't some abstract philosophical puzzle for him. No, he was basically a talent scout, an advisor to rulers, a mentor. His main job was to size people up, to figure out who was actually fit for the serious business of governing. And his methods? Well, they are surprisingly relevant. So, what was on his checklist? When Confucius was trying to spot people who could be trusted with real power, he had a pretty clear set of criteria. And it had nothing to do with charisma or who your family was. It was all about what was at your core. Now, I know that sounds a little cryptic, but in his day, that was about the highest praise you could possibly get. The seat facing south, well, that was the throne. That's where the ruler sat. So with just one simple phrase, Confucius was saying, my student Young, yeah, he's got what it takes to lead an entire nation. That is a massive vote of confidence. And this wasn't just some hypothetical game he was playing. This was real life. When a local ruler, a guy named Chi Kang-tsu, actually came to him and said, hey, I need to fill some government jobs, Confucius didn't launch into a big lecture. Nope. He basically gave him a personnel review of 3 of his top students. And what's so interesting here is that he didn't just recommend one type of person. He saw value in different kinds of strengths. For Chung Yu, the key was that he was resolute, decisive, could make a tough call. For Su, it was about understanding, empathy, being able to see things from other perspectives. And for Chu, it was simply that he was accomplished, he was skilled, he could get stuff done. The big takeaway here is that Confucius knew there were many paths to being a good leader. So we've got these core traits, but holding them all together was one quality that was absolutely non-negotiable: integrity. Confucius once praised an official for a very specific reason. The guy never takes shortcuts. He just showed up, did his job honestly, and went home. He wasn't trying to play the game or climb the ladder. In a world full of networking and backroom deals, sound familiar? That, for Confucius, was the ultimate sign of a trustworthy person. But here's the thing. For Confucius, getting a big government job wasn't the end goal, not even close. The real work was internal. It was about shaping your own character to become what he called a gentleman. And he had a very specific idea of what that meant. So a Jew was basically a scholar, an intellectual. This quote was Confucius's big challenge to all his highly educated students. He was saying, look, don't just be a smart person, a petty Jew. Be a good person, a gentleman Jew. Okay, great. But what does that actually mean? How do you make that jump? For Confucius, it all came down to balance. He said you basically have 2 parts to you. On one hand, you've got your native substance. That's who you are deep down, your raw character. But if that's all you have, you can come off as kind of crude. Then, on the other hand, you have acquired refinement, your education, your manners, your culture. But if you have too much of that without the substance, you just become a pretentious phony. A true gentleman? He's a perfect blend of both. Authentic character, polished by culture. Okay, so that's the theory. But how does this all work in the real world? Well, nothing reveals a person's character quite like how they handle money. And there's this one famous story that shows exactly how Confucius applied his principles. This setup is pretty simple. One of his students, Suhua, is away on a mission. Another student comes up to Confucius and says, hey, Suhua's mom is struggling a bit. Can we give her some grain? Seems like a simple, kind request, right? Confucius's answer is very practical. He says, sure, give her 1 fu. Just think of this as a standard measure of grain. It's enough to help her out, but it's not over the top. But the student, he thinks he can do better. He wants to be seen as really generous. So he ignores Confucius's advice and goes and gives the mother 5 ping, which was a ridiculously huge amount of grain. Way, way more than she needed. And this is where the real lesson kicks in. Boom. Confucius uses this as a teachable moment. He points out that the student away on the mission, Tsuhua, was traveling with well-fed horses and wearing light furs. He wasn't poor. The student's huge donation wasn't really about helping the needy. It was about subsidizing a rich person's lifestyle. For Confucius, real generosity isn't a performance. It's about meeting a genuine need.
And this whole idea leads us right to the very top of the mountain in Confucian thinking, the concept of ren, or benevolence. And for Confucius, there was one student who was the living embodiment of this idea, his absolute favorite disciple, Yan Hui.
Just listen to that. It's such a powerful image. Yan Hui was living in what we would call extreme poverty. And yet, Confucius says this incredible hardship never, ever touched his inner joy. His character was so solid, so centered, that his happiness was completely disconnected from his material situation. To Confucius, that was the sign of true moral greatness. So what is this benevolence, this rin, that Yan Hui had in spades? It's not just about being nice or kind. The definition is beautiful. A benevolent person helps others to take their stand insofar as he himself wishes to take his stand. Think about that. It's this deep, active empathy. It's wanting the same security, success, and dignity for other people that you want for yourself, and then actually doing something to help them get it. So Confucius laid out this whole roadmap, a clear guide to being a leader, a gentleman, a truly good human being. You'd think people would be lining up, but he was also deeply, almost painfully aware of how few people actually chose to walk that path, and it led to one of his most famous and kinda sad reflections. The metaphor is just perfect, isn't it? Following the way, living a life with integrity and balance and benevolence, it should be as obvious as using a door to leave a room. It's the only path that makes sense. And yet, he looks around and sees everyone trying to climb out the windows or just banging their heads against the wall. And that's really the question he leaves for us, isn't it? 2,500 years later, and it feels more urgent than ever. Confucius showed us where the door is. He told us what it feels like to walk through it. The only real question left for all of us is, what's stopping us from just taking that first step?